What if the very people you trust the most are the ones quietly plotting your downfall? In a world painted with smiles and false loyalties, Machiavelli's timeless lesson is brutal but clear. Stop trusting everyone around you. Trust, as sweet and comforting as it feels, is the greatest vulnerability one can expose. This video dives deep into the silent revenge Machiavelli teaches, the ruthless art of suspicion, the calculated coldness that shields you from betrayal. We'll unravel the hidden mechanics of manipulation and control, dissecting how power players navigate a treacherous landscape where allies can become enemies overnight. Expect sharp analysis laced with dark humor and unsettling truths. We'll journey through historical betrayals and psychological warfare that still echo in today's power struggles. The goal: to arm you with the mental armor to see through deception and protect your throne before the dagger strikes. Are you ready to abandon naive trust and embrace the cunning mindset necessary for survival and dominance? Let's expose the shadows lurking behind every handshake and reveal the silent revenge that Machiavelli swore by. Trust, the currency of human relationships, yet often the most counterfeit coin circulating in the brutal market of power. Machiavelli, the master strategist, warned centuries ago that loyalty is rarely what it appears to be. It is not a sacred bond, but a carefully crafted mask. Behind every smile, every show of support, there may lurk ambition, envy, and cold opportunism. Consider the world. Machiavelli inhabited a ruthless political landscape, rife with shifting alliances and backstabbing nobles. Trust was a fragile luxury few could afford. Historical figures, even the greatest, found themselves undone not by brute force, but by those they trusted most. The lesson is brutal, but timeless. Guard your trust as you would your life. Dispense it sparingly and carry always a shadow of doubt. Take Cesare Borgia, Machiavelli's infamous exemplar, as a case in point. Borgia maneuvered through a labyrinth of betrayals and false friends, wielding suspicion as a weapon. His success wasn't due to blind faith in allies, but a relentless skepticism that saw through facades. He taught us that trust granted without caution is the perfect opening for one's downfall. But how does this translate into our lives today? In the modern world, the stakes might not be life or death, but the dynamics of trust remain treacherous. Every compliment, every favor, every handshake could hide ulterior motives. When we let down our guard, we hand over power to those ready to exploit it, often when we least expect it. Machiavelli's insight here is both a warning and a strategy. Develop an awareness that trust is never a given. It is a calculated choice. It is a tool to be wielded with care, never freely given. Trust is less a bond and more a contract, one that should be reviewed carefully with terms that protect your interests. This approach demands cultivating cold detachment, not a cynical bitterness that alienates, but a razor-sharp vigilance that protects. It means watching, silently observing the behavior behind the words, reading the invisible currents beneath surface gestures. It is about anticipating betrayal before it happens and turning suspicion into strength. Machiavelli's idea of silent revenge lies in this patient vigilance. Instead of reacting immediately to slights or doubts, the silent Machiavellian watches and waits, allowing enemies and false friends to reveal their true nature. The perfect moment to strike comes not in anger, but in cold calculation, turning betrayal into opportunity. There is a paradox here. The more you distrust, the more control you have. By questioning the loyalty of those around you, you gain a psychological edge that can prevent disaster. You become the unseen force shaping events from the shadows, rather than a pawn being manipulated. Moreover, understanding the illusion of trust sharpens your perception of human nature. It exposes the uncomfortable truth that people often act in self-interest, cloaked in kindness. Recognizing this helps you navigate relationships with caution and wisdom. The emotional toll of such skepticism can be heavy. Constant vigilance breeds loneliness, and the mask of distrust can alienate even the closest allies. But Machiavelli reminds us that in the ruthless game of power, vulnerability is the deadliest weakness. To survive and thrive, you must balance caution with calculated openness, allowing only those proven worthy to enter your inner circle. In the end, the illusion of trust is not just about protecting yourself. It's about mastering the intricate dance of power. It's about knowing when to trust whom to trust, and when to wield suspicion as your shield and sword. This secret, like all Machiavellian principles, demands discipline awareness and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It strips away the comforting myths of loyalty and friendship to reveal the raw, often dark realities of human relationships. To walk this path is to embrace the shadowy side of power, a path where trust is earned in drops, guarded fiercely, and never given lightly. It is the first step toward commanding respect and control in a world where appearances deceive and true loyalty is rare. Betrayal. It is the silent poison seeping beneath the gilded surface of power, an inevitable shadow cast over every throne, every alliance, every whispered pact. Machiavelli, the unflinching master of realpolitik, understood better than most that betrayal is not an unfortunate accident in the game of power. It is a fundamental rule. The question is never if you will be betrayed, it is when, by whom, and how prepared you are to strike back before the blade finds your back. History is dripping with the blood of betrayed rulers, generals, and statesmen who mistook loyalty for permanence. Julius Caesar, adored by the Roman people and surrounded by trusted allies, was undone by Brutus, a friend whose dagger was cloaked in the guise of fidelity. The knife twists deepest when wielded by those closest to you, those who know your fears, your secrets, and your vulnerabilities. This is the cruel paradox of power. The very people you elevate can become the architects of your downfall. Machiavelli's insight into betrayal is both a warning and a blueprint. He counsels leaders to trust sparingly and to maintain a constant vigilance. But more importantly, he urges them to anticipate betrayal before it happens to become the predator who strikes first, not the prey caught unaware. This anticipatory strike, what we call Machiavelli's silent revenge, transforms betrayal from a devastating blow into an opportunity for ruthless reset. To master this art, you must become a student of human nature and behavior, a psychological detective reading the faintest signs of disloyalty. Betrayal rarely announces itself with trumpets. It creeps in through subtle shifts, a hesitation in tone, a glance exchanged behind your back, a sudden change in allegiance, or an unusual secrecy in meetings. These are the murmurs of mutiny waiting to explode. Machiavelli's silent strategist watches and listens for these signals with cold precision. You cultivate a network of information not out of paranoia, but from strategic necessity. You learn to separate the surface noise from the underlying currents, to discern the friend from the foe in a crowd of smiles. This is not just caution. It is a calculated awareness that protects your reign. Timing is everything. Knowing when to strike is as important as knowing whom to strike. Acting too soon can isolate potential allies and sow discord among your supporters. Waiting too long can leave you vulnerable to a fatal blow. The silent revenge lies in the delicate balance, the patient, cold calculation that dismantles a threat before it fully materializes. When the moment arrives, your response must be swift, precise, and merciless. Revenge is not a frenzied act of rage, but a strategic maneuver that sends a clear message. Betrayal will be met with consequences so severe that no other would dare attempt the same. This is the language of power, silent, deadly, and utterly unambiguous. But betrayal is not only about enemies within, it also reveals the complexity of human ambition. People betray not just out of malice, but often because of opportunity fear or a desperate grasp for survival. A Machiavellian leader understands these motivations and uses them to manipulate outcomes. Sometimes exposing a would-be betrayer to their own schemes is the most effective revenge, letting their own ambition lead them to ruin. In practical terms, mastering the anatomy of betrayal means controlling information tightly. Share your plan sparingly and always with purpose. Keep your friends close, but keep your informants closer. Build redundancies in loyalty. Don't depend on a single person or faction. The more complex your web, the harder it is for betrayal to find a foothold. Moreover, the art of betrayal anticipation extends beyond politics and history. In everyday life, in business relationships, even friendships, the dynamics remain eerily similar. The people you trust can become the ones who exploit your vulnerabilities if you let your guard down. By cultivating the Machiavellian mindset, you learn to navigate these treacherous waters with eyes wide open, ready to act before the knife strikes. The emotional cost is high. Constant vigilance can breed loneliness and cynicism. Yet, as Machiavelli teaches, power is not a playground for the naive or sentimental. It demands hard truths and ruthless resolve. Those unwilling to embrace this reality are doomed to become casualties in the silent wars raging beneath polite facades. To survive and thrive in the ruthless game of power, you must transform betrayal from a source of fear into a tool of control. Strike first, strike hard, and ensure your enemies know the price of crossing you. This is Machiavelli's silent revenge, the calculated, unyielding power to turn betrayal into your weapon, reshaping your destiny on your own terms. In the unforgiving game of power, the most precious commodity is not gold armies or even intelligence. It's a mind that never sleeps, a mind forged in ruthless vigilance. Machiavelli's world was one where trust was a dangerous gamble, and survival hinged on one's ability to anticipate betrayal before it struck. This section peels back the layers of that mindset, revealing how to live, think, and act like a true Machiavellian strategist, always skeptical, always calculating, and always prepared. At its core, ruthless vigilance is a disciplined practice of trust but verify. It is not mere paranoia or cynical detachment, but a proactive, conscious stance toward every interaction. Machiavelli understood that humans are driven by self-interest, cloaked in layers of deception, envy that simmers beneath the smiles, ambition that hides behind praise, and fear that warps loyalty into opportunism. Recognizing this is not pessimism. It is the unvarnished truth that separates the master from the pawn. The ancient rulers who survived Machiavelli's brutal political landscape did so by embracing this mindset. Queen Elizabeth I of England, for instance, surrounded herself with a vast network of spies and informants. She never trusted blindly. Instead, she verified every claim, cross-examined every report, and used disinformation as a shield. Her vigilance was the foundation of her nearly half-century reign, protecting her throne from conspiracies, assassinations, and political upheavals. In practical terms, cultivating ruthless vigilance means that no word, no promise, and no gesture is taken at face value. You approach every ally with the same analytical lens you'd reserve for an opponent. Are their words consistent? Do their actions match their promises? What subtle signs betray their true intentions? You learn to read the gaps between words, the hesitation in their eyes, and the unspoken tension in their body language. These nuances often expose the cracks where betrayal will seep through. But vigilance extends beyond skepticism of others. It demands control over your own emotions. Fear, anger, and pride are your greatest enemies here. They cloud judgment and invite mistakes. Machiavelli was blunt to wield power effectively. You must maintain emotional detachment. This cold rationality allows you to analyze threats clearly, to act decisively, and to avoid the traps of impulsive retaliation. Imagine the calm composure of a chess grandmaster watching the board, anticipating moves not in haste, but with patience and precision. Your life, your power is the board, and every relationship, every conversation is a move that must be calculated carefully. The Machiavellian strategist does not flinch. They adapt and control. Ruthless vigilance also involves mastering the art of timing. Acting too early can expose your intentions, alienate potential allies, or cause unnecessary conflict. Acting too late can result in irreversible damage. Thus, patience is a weapon just as sharp as a dagger. You gather intelligence, silently build your defenses, and wait for the exact moment to strike or to reinforce your position. In everyday contexts, business, politics, or even personal relationships, this mindset guards against the hidden dangers of deception and betrayal. You learn to keep sensitive information close to manage who knows what and when. This control over information is power. The more others depend on your guarded knowledge, the more they are bound to you. However, ruthless vigilance does not mean isolating yourself or becoming a cynic who trusts no one. Rather, it is about strategic trust, knowing who and when to trust, always backed by verification. It is a continuous process, a dance between openness and guardedness. The silent strategist balances these extremes with grace and discipline, always steering clear of the pitfalls of blind faith or total distrust. This balance is what allows you to navigate the treacherous waters of influence. You become a master not just of defense, but of offense. By controlling perceptions, managing alliances, and anticipating moves, you shift from reactive to proactive. You don't just survive the game of power, you control it. At a psychological level, adopting this mindset reshapes your worldview. You start seeing the world as a complex web of interests, alliances, and deceptions, rather than simple friendships or enmities. This can be a lonely place, and the emotional toll is real. Constant vigilance breeds wariness and often isolation. But Machiavelli's brutal honesty reminds us, power is not a playground for the naive or sentimental. To succeed, you must accept this cost. You must be willing to walk the shadowy path where trust is scarce, where loyalty is conditional, and where your mind is your greatest weapon. In doing so, you transcend the ordinary, positioning yourself as an unstoppable force in a world ruled by ambition and cunning. In conclusion, ruthless vigilance is your mental armor and sword. It empowers you to see through illusions, predict betrayals, and act with lethal precision. It transforms fear into strategy, doubt into control, and suspicion into strength. This mindset doesn't promise peace or comfort, but it offers something far more valuable: survival, influence, and ultimately power. Generosity is often viewed through a rose-colored lens, an act of kindness, selflessness, or goodwill. In the naive narrative, to give freely is to build trust, foster goodwill, and strengthen bonds. But in the ruthless world Machiavelli inhabited, and the one he invites us into, generosity is a calculated act of power. It is a weapon cloaked in benevolence, wielded to control, to create obligation, and to manipulate. Machiavelli knew that people rarely give without expectation, and they rarely accept gifts without a price. When you offer generosity, you're not merely giving. You're initiating a transaction. That transaction is psychological and social, a debt that the recipient feels compelled to repay. This debt is invisible, but binding. It shifts the balance of power in your favor. Think of historical figures like the Medici family, whose wealth and patronage secured political alliances and social dominance across Renaissance Italy. Their generosity was never random or purely charitable. It was strategic. They knew how to distribute favors to create loyalty and indebtedness, to keep allies close and enemies closer still. Their largesse was an investment, and every gift came with an unspoken contract. Controlled generosity requires precision. Giving too much too freely is tantamount to handing away your power. It breeds dependency, but also complacency and entitlement. On the other hand, giving too little risks appearing stingy or disingenuous, undermining your influence and damaging relationships before they begin. The strategist's art is in balance. You must know your audience, their desires, weaknesses, and ambitions, and tailor your generosity accordingly. Offer what they need most, what they cannot easily obtain elsewhere. This ensures that your gift creates maximum obligation with minimum cost to you. Generosity can also be a tool of psychological warfare. A well-timed gift can disarm an adversary, placate a rival, or distract attention from your true intentions. It's the subtle art of masking power plays behind a veneer of kindness. This duality, the appearance of benevolence hiding strategic calculation, is the hallmark of Machiavellian generosity. In daily life, this principle applies to more than money or material gifts. Information favors time and emotional support can all be given strategically. Each becomes a thread in the web of influence you weave. The key is always control. What you give when you give it, and to whom must always serve your broader goals. This mindset demands patience and restraint. Strategic generosity is not about impulsive kindness or emotional generosity. It's about forethought and planning. You cultivate a reputation for generosity without allowing it to consume your resources or your advantage. You give enough to maintain influence, but never so much that you lose leverage. Furthermore, the act of giving establishes a psychological dynamic. It positions you as the benefactor and the recipient as the obliged. This dynamic subtly shifts power, making the recipient dependent on your goodwill, eager to please or reluctant to betray you. Machiavelli's insight extends beyond individual relationships. On a larger scale, rulers use generosity to secure political alliances, stabilize volatile regions, and maintain social order. They understood that generosity wielded with strategy could bind disparate factions together and prevent uprisings. Yet the silent truth is that generosity without strategy is vulnerability. It invites exploitation by those who recognize your weakness or generosity as an opportunity. The truly powerful give with calculation, always measuring the return on their investment. In essence, controlled generosity is a dance, a balancing act between giving and withholding, kindness and calculation, vulnerability and strength. It requires emotional intelligence and strategic foresight. By mastering this art, you transform generosity from a passive virtue into an active instrument of power. You create bonds that are not merely social, but binding chains of obligation. You position yourself not as a supplicant asking for loyalty, but as a benefactor demanding respect and influence. In the Machiavellian view, generosity is not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of control. It is a subtle form of manipulation that shapes the social fabric around you, securing your place at the center of power. To wield generosity without losing your grip requires discipline and an unwavering focus on your goals. It is a testament to your mastery of the silent, often invisible forces that govern human relationships. As you navigate your world, remember that every gift you give is a strategic move. Whether you are a leader, a business person, or simply an individual seeking influence, controlled generosity is a weapon you must learn to use with precision. Give not to please, but to control. Give not from weakness, but from strength. In this, Machiavelli's lesson rings clear: power is preserved, not by how much you give, but by how well you command the debts you create. In the brutal chessboard of power, presence is a double-edged sword. While being seen can signal influence and command, it can also expose weaknesses, create vulnerabilities, and tire even the strongest. Machiavelli's wisdom teaches us a counterintuitive but devastatingly effective strategy: master the art of strategic withdrawal, knowing precisely when to step back, disappear, and let your absence work in your favor. This isn't about cowardice or avoidance. It's a calculated retreat designed to heighten your value by becoming scarce, mysterious, and indispensable. When you are everywhere, you become ordinary. When you withdraw, you become a phantom, an enigma. Others obsess over the shadow they can't chase fast enough. Historical titans understood this deeply. Emperor Augustus famously withdrew from Rome's political chaos at times, allowing tension to build, and his return to be hailed as triumphant. The less you are seen, the more your presence is felt. Absence does not diminish power. It amplifies it by compelling others to question, to fear losing you, and to seek your favor with greater urgency. In everyday life, this principle translates to the power of scarcity. Don't be available to everyone and anyone at all times. Guard your time and attention fiercely. By selectively appearing, you control the narrative and set the terms of engagement. Your ghost presence lingers longer and exerts more influence than constant visibility ever could. But beware, this power requires restraint and timing. Disappear too long, and you risk irrelevance. Withdraw too soon, and you cede ground to rivals. The true strategist gauges the mood, the stakes, and the desires of those around them, then moves like a shadow in the night, unseen but omnipresent in effect. The psychology behind this tactic is simple, yet profound. Humans value what they cannot easily have. By becoming scarce, you leverage this scarcity to inspire respect, desire, and fear. You transform from a mere player into a legend whispered about in corridors of power. Moreover, strategic withdrawal is a form of silent revenge against those who would control or exploit you. By refusing to be constantly available, you deny others the satisfaction of possession or predictability. You reclaim your autonomy, forcing them to chase rather than command. This tactic also dovetails with Machiavelli's broader philosophy. Power is about controlling perceptions as much as controlling people. Your absence shapes perception. It constructs an aura of mystery and strength that no words can match. In practice, mastering strategic withdrawal means cultivating patience and self-control. It means saying no, setting boundaries, and embracing solitude as a source of strength. It's the ultimate display of confidence, knowing you are so valuable that your absence is felt as power. In a world addicted to constant connection and visibility, this Machiavellian secret is more relevant than ever. To wield power silently, to command respect without shouting, to let your absence speak louder than your presence, this is mastery. The world of power is a battlefield where trust is fragile, betrayal is inevitable, and respect must be commanded with unyielding strategy. Machiavelli's silent revenge teaches us that to survive and thrive, we must master the art of skepticism, vigilance, calculated generosity, and strategic withdrawal. These are not mere tactics. They are the very essence of influence and control. We have uncovered how trust can be a dangerous illusion, how betrayal can be anticipated and neutralized, and how generosity, when wielded like a weapon, creates invisible chains of obligation. We have seen the power in silence and absence, in being a force felt rather than heard. Power demands sacrifice. It demands cold calculation and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. But for those who embrace these lessons, the rewards are immense silent respect, unwavering loyalty, and a commanding presence that shapes the world around them. Now reflect on which of these secrets resonates with you. How will you integrate Machiavelli's ruthless wisdom into your own life and leadership? Remember, power is not given. It is taken with precision and patience. If you found these insights valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the art of power.